Good afternoon, everyone. It is 2 p.m. on Monday, September 8th, 2025. I'm calling to order this meeting of the Santa Clara County Human Trafficking Commission. Turning to the clerk to please call roll to establish the presence of a quorum.
Okay. Co-Chair Young.
Here.
Co-Chair Rosen. Here. Okay. Member Capps. Absent. Co-Chair here. Okay. My apologies. Present. Thank you. Co-Chair Johnson. Here. Present. Thank you. Co-Chair Rodriguez. Absent. Member Silver. Here. Present. Thank you. Member Valeros. Here. Present. Thank you. Member Burchard. Absent. Member Villa. Here. Present. Thank you. Member Little.
Here.
Present. Member Cisneros Jones. Absent. Member Staff. Here. Present. Thank you. Member Lee. Member Lee's absent. Member Oliver. Absent. Member Spears. Present. Thank you. Member Dwyer. Absent. Member Lagergren. Absent. Member Field. Absent. Member O'Brien. Thank you. Member O'Brien is absent and Member Flores is present. Thank you. Member Silvertobe. Present. Thank you. Member Danoa. Present as well. Thank you. Member Dwan. Present. Thank you. Member Candelas. Absent. Member Collins. Present. Member Gilmore. Absent. Member Park. Absent. Member Green. Present. Thank you. Member Ganot. Absent. Member Moreno. Present. Thank you. Member Arenas.
Here.
Present. Thank you. And Member Yu. Present. Thank you. And you have a quorum.
Awesome. We have a quorum. All right, my friends, members, thank you so much for being here today with me. I know that we had scheduled this meeting for 3 hours today. My intention is not to keep you here for 3 hours. It's also to prevent us from holding over any members of the commission today for too long. So you have my word that I am committed to making this as efficient, effective, and as expedient as possible. Sounds good? So up next on the agenda, the first item of the agenda is public comment. This item is reserved for persons who wish to address the committee on any matter within the subject matter jurisdiction of the committee that is not on this agenda. The law does not permit committee action or extended discussion of any item not on the agenda except under special circumstances. So for the members of the public who wish to address the committee on a non-agendized item, you should request to speak at this time if you haven't already done so by submitting a request to speak form if you are in chambers or by using the raise hand icon if attending virtually. And turn to the clerk to see if there are any speakers, both in the chambers or on Zoom.
So there are currently no requests in chambers, and we have 2 hands raised in Zoom.
Great. So each speaker will have 2 minutes.
2 minutes? All right. So let me just adjust the timer here. And we'll go ahead and call our first speaker.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Our agenda details that 5 or fewer speakers will receive 3 minutes each. So I'll follow our policy and provide 3 minutes each for this section for 2 speakers.
No problem. So 3 minutes. So our first speaker is Parent. Parent, we are unmuting you. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Please go ahead.
Yes, well, good afternoon. As you know, I've addressed you guys on many occasions about my children who are being sex trafficked by my former attorney and a retired judge. These people want the sexual abuse to continue. And in turn, the district attorney's office has filed charges against me when I didn't even commit a crime. And this is to bring the matter to competency proceedings and to discredit everything that I've said about my kids. And this coordination also includes violence from the former attorney against me, and I've suffered great bodily harm because of this. And I strongly believe that if we want to reduce sex trafficking in this county, that we need to remove Jeff Rosen from office because he is destroying this community and he is creating a culture of fear. This is what James Sibley told the Mercury News when he blew the whistle on Jeff Rosen gifting public funds to 15 of his top attorneys. He said that you have to go along with the program or there's going to be retaliation. And he did. He was demoted. He was retaliated against, and he was also investigated. Jeff Rosen opened an investigation against him, the guy that blew the whistle against him. You could see what happened to Daniel Chung after he tried to protect me and my children. He was treated like a criminal, you know, put up 2 wanted posters in the DA's office and then escorted out of the office by 3 armed investigators, like he was doing something wrong, like I'm doing something wrong by trying to protect my kids. And I think this is why he's doing this on purpose. He's done this to other parents as well, and he wants to create fear within the community, because the more fear that there is in the community, that somebody's going to get assaulted, somebody's going to get criminalized, that somebody's going to be stalked and abused ad nauseum, the more power that he has on the community. And it's wrong that more people don't speak out against this. I know there's a lot of other people that this is happening to, that they're afraid. They're afraid of Jeff Rosen and what he's going to do. We really need to remove this guy. I've posted a lot of this information online. If anybody wants to look it up, Google DA Jeff Rosen petition sex trafficking. All those terms together, the top 3 or 4 results, you'll see what I'm talking about. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Rena's iPad. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Please go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Renad. I'm currently in a physician assistant master of public health student over in Touro University in Vallejo. I want to raise an important point about human trafficking as both a healthcare and public health issue. Studies show that many survivors of trafficking seek medical care at some point during their exploitation, often in emergency departments, urgent care, or primary care settings. Yet too often those encounters are missed opportunities because providers have not been trained to recognize the subtle warning signs or to respond in a trauma-informed way. This is kind of where PA schools and other health professional programs have a critical role. Physician assistants or associates are trained as flexible frontline providers who will see patients in diverse clinical settings, including underserved communities and unrecognized communities. Incorporating standardized training on recognizing and responding to human trafficking into PA curricula would equip future providers to identify red flags, ask the right questions safely, and connect survivors to appropriate resources. Training could include not only clinical recognition, but also cultural humility, trauma-informed care, and partnerships with local advocacy groups. My question today is what concrete steps are being taken to ensure PA schools and other schools in general, MD, DEO, nursing, etc., are preparing students to play an active role in addressing human trafficking in clinical practice? And are these opportunities for academic institutions to partner with local health departments and nonprofits so that students gain hands-on experience and understand community-based resources available to survivors? I believe by strengthening PA education in this area, we can build a healthcare workforce that is prepared to intervene early, provide compassionate care, and help break the cycle of trafficking. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And that concludes speakers.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is approval of the consent calendar and any changes to the committee agenda. I turn to my co-chairs, District Attorney Jeff Rosen and Sheriff Bob Johnson, to see if there are any changes you'd like to make in, no? Okay. No? Any changes that our members would like to make today to the agenda? All right. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Okay. Second.
And just to clarify, that's a motion by Co-Chair Rosen and a second by Co-Chair Johnson. Is that correct?
Yes.
Second was from Councilmember Dwan.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Okay. All right, I'll go ahead and call the roll. Co-Chair Young,
Yes.
Co-Chair Rosen,
Yes.
Co-Chair Johnson, Member Silver,
Yes.
Member Villa, Member Little,
Yes.
Member Staff, Member Spears, Member Flores, Member Silvertaub,
Yes.
Member Dwan,
Yes.
Member Collins, Member Green, Member Moreno, Member Arenas,
Yes.
and Member Yu. Thank you. That is a unanimous vote, and the motion passes.
So the next item on our agenda is item 4. And that is to approve outreach letter for distribution to each jurisdiction. Fellow fellow members of the commission today, what I'd like to ask of the commission today is to provide direction and approve authority for the chair and co-chairs to send out a letter on behalf of this commission that would, what I propose at this time is first is to ask our jurisdictional partners to sign on as supporters of a regional communication, outreach, and planning effort on human trafficking and labor trafficking. This is not an ask for them to contribute monetary, to make any monetary or fiscal contributions or staffing. It's just that they would be signing on as supporters of what we roll out of here from this commission. The second ask would be to commit to share the resources developed throughout from our commission's work with our partners, that we could provide it to them, and that they would make a commitment to share it with their respective and relevant partners within their own jurisdictions. The next ask would be for a point of contact so that this commission can provide ongoing informational updates. And the last ask on my list would be for them to leave the door open for them to consider additional ways to participate in the regional plan at a level that they so wish. Those are the 4 initial asks, and the reason why I bring this to the commission today is that in the process of delving into developing a letter of partnership is that we realize we have multiple audiences. Some of these letters will go to law enforcement agencies, which will take on a different tone, which is where Sheriff Johnson, Co-Chair Johnson, and Co-Chair Rosen, I would ask you to lean in on with me. Some of these letters are going to be sent to fellow government agencies, cities, counties for them, and that will be something that I would seek input and thought partnership with the Supervisor Arenas, because that'll be more in the political, the government elected side of things. And then there would also be another track, at least one more track of communication to community-based organization and nonprofit partnerships. So each of these have a different audience, a different framing of how we make these asks, so that the 4 tracks that I presented today is the general approach that I would like to take, in addition to anything else that this commission feels should be included in this extension of partnership to our regional partners. I turn to my commission for discussion. I don't see any. Is it safe to say there's agreement on this? Great. Okay. I would like to then make a motion that the Human Trafficking Commission approve co-chairs sending out letters on behalf of the commission with the above purposes. That was just the 4 questions with the 3 tranches of communication channels for our categories of partners. Would that be okay? Okay. That's my motion. Can I get a second? I'll second it. I'm gonna, Councilmember Dawn, since you had the second last time, do you mind if I give this to our sheriff?
Sure.
Okay. One-time sheriff. No, I'm kidding. Okay, so motion made by Chair Young and seconded by Co-Chair Johnson.
I'll go ahead and call the roll. Co-Chair Young,
Yes.
Co-Chair Rosen, yes. Co-Chair Johnson, yes. Member Silver,
Yes.
Member Villa, yes. Member Little,
Yes.
Member Staff, yes. Member Spears,
Yes.
Member Flores, yes. Member Silvertope,
Yes.
Member Dwan,
Yes.
Member Collins, yes. Member Green, yes. Member Moreno, yes. Member Arenas, yes. And Member Yu. Thank you. Motion passes unanimously.
Wonderful. Next up is, thank you, commission members, for trusting us co-chairs with developing these letters. I assure you will see a draft of it before it goes out to the world, because it is in your name. So Just want to make sure that was clear. Next up is item 5A, and that is to receive report from the Office of the District Attorney relating to human trafficking task force activities. And I'll turn it over to representatives of the District Attorney's Office.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. So last time we were here, we discussed the fact that the Department of Justice.
Who are you?
I'm sorry.
And what's your role in the DA's office?
Good afternoon, Mr. Rosen. I'm Brian Slater, and I supervise the human trafficking prosecutors in the District Attorney's Office. So last time we were here about 3 months ago, we discussed the fact that the Department of Justice grant funding is set to expire, and they have not accepted or announced accepting applications for renewed grant funding, and that unfortunately has not changed. So what that means is that grant funding is set to expire at the end of the month, and that will result in us not having funding to fully cover our specialized training and operations that would be needed before our large-scale sporting events such as FIFA World Cup and the Super Bowl. The training that would be funded would be things like advanced survivor-centered interviewing, trauma-informed care, and demand reduction operations, including training of our local law enforcement and overtime costs for those operations. We, of course, are grateful to the Department of Justice and the OVC grant funding that we have received, but what this shows is that our heavy reliance on this grant funding jeopardizes continuity of staffing. For instance, our task force coordinator, advocates as well, things like training and equipment that are needed to be effective. This can lead to difficulty in retaining highly trained staff. It creates a turnover at critical moments such as now, and also can lead to an inability to meet heightened demand during major events, which risks undermining public and survivor trust in the county's capacity to respond. Some of the challenges that we are facing with our large-scale sporting events is that we do not currently have a dedicated funding to cover overtime for investigations or extended operations that would be needed. On the law enforcement side, there is a need for an additional investigative support, including a crime analyst and a sworn investigator. On the victim advocacy side, we do have a shortage of bilingual and bicultural advocates needed to meet an anticipated survivor demographics, especially for Asian and Latinx communities with the upcoming events. We also do lack a dedicated analyst to track cases, outcomes, and engage in cross-agency coordination. We are, of course, focused on child protection, which comes with it an increased need for forensic interviewers, and that process includes an extensive training requirement. We have begun looking at creative funding opportunities such as exploring reassignment, and this was at the suggestion of the commission, reassignment of vacant or vacant positions from other departments temporarily for the coordinator. One idea that has been discussed, floated, is some sort of cross-departmental funding pools to establish an interdepartmental fund specific to event response, such as the World Cup, allowing departments to draw down for overtime or surge staffing. And then also public and private partnerships, engaging with event organizers, the hospitality industry, and local or national community-based organizations to supplement survivor services and prevention efforts. At the last meeting, the commission did ask what we can do to target at-risk youth. One area is in all delinquency cases pending in our courts, probation officers do an initial interview to identify the needs of that youth and to make recommendations as far as the services that should be provided. This is an ideal time to identify risk factors for human trafficking, and that is currently being done by the probation department, specifically the juvenile probation department. They do use the CIT tool, which is CSEIT, the Commercial Sexual Exploitation Identification Tool, which is a screening toolkit that the probation officers do with every youth that is referred for delinquency to identify if they are at risk for human trafficking. There also is a dually involved youth calendar, and this is specifically for minors that are involved both in our juvenile delinquency and dependency system, so meaning that they are dependent, but they also have a case pending in our juvenile justice system. On that calendar, there is always a probation officer, a social worker, generally a foster parent or a group home representative, depending on the home situation of that child. Someone frequently from San Andreas Regional Center, again, depending on the needs of that child, a substance abuse counselor, a deputy district attorney, and defense counsel. That all of the people involved in that calendar are aware that these minors are at particular risk for human trafficking, and so preventing those minors from being further victimized is one of the focuses of those meetings. So there are, of course, prevention challenges even when an at-risk youth is identified. One of the main challenges is a lack of bed space. So at-risk minors who are in the juvenile delinquency system, once they have an adjudicated case, they can be sent to the ranch, but of course, that should be a last resort. Sadly, it is sometimes the best option for that minor. And another challenge that faces us is that facilities that provide services to at-risk youth become recruitment centers, sadly, for exploiters. I did want to highlight briefly or talk to you about the cases that we have issued so far this year, just so you have an idea of the work that we've done and are doing. At the time this report was prepared, we had issued 12 cases involving human trafficking, with 14 defendants and 14 survivors. Those all involved sex trafficking or prostitution. We did not have any new labor trafficking cases. 4 involved brothels. 3 had intersections with domestic violence. 2 of our defendants we also charged those defendants for conduct in Alameda and San Mateo County. And 3 involved minor survivors or targets, meaning that the victim that the defendant was attempting to target was a minor, or the defendant believed the target was a minor. So I was going to highlight, without going into details or giving specific names, 4 particular cases for you. Case number 1 involved a 16-year-old survivor who fell in love with the defendant and agreed to go on dates to make him happy. After a certain point, she decided she did not want to do that anymore. He became violent, and on multiple occasions, he would press a gun to her head, threatened to shoot her. He also gave her alcohol and drugs and exploited that addiction. And he sent her a video of himself raping her while she was drugged, with an implied threat that that would be released. He is charged with human trafficking of a minor by force, rape, and assault with a firearm. He is facing life and is being held with no bail allowed. In another case, we had a San Jose undercover officer pose as a 16-year-old girl on social media. The defendant contacted that officer over Instagram, believing that he was an underage girl, tried to recruit her to come work for him, and he was arrested when he came to San Jose to pick up the victim. In our third case, the defendant convinced the victim to come to San Jose from Southern California. He locked her in his apartment and would not allow her to leave. He told her that she worked for him now and had to earn money. She was able to contact security guard at a store while she was out with him. Thankfully, the security called the police, and the police were able to intervene. He is charged with kidnapping to commit a sexual offense and human trafficking. And our fourth case involves a successful operation by our task force, where 2 brothels were shut down, one in San Jose that made about $350,000 in 17 months, and a second Hayward location that also made about $350,000 in 32 months. want to tell you a little bit about the services we provided for victims. As of August 25th, our Victim Services Unit has provided services to 8 human trafficking survivors, providing a total of 108 services. Last year, there were 16 human trafficking survivors that were provided with services for a total of 249 services provided to those survivors. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the presentation. So that was item 5A, and I think we're now going to go to item 5B, the presentation from the Office of Gender-Based Violence Prevention. Then there'll be a third and final presentation from our Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. I think after that, we'll head into discussion as a commission to identify next steps and any potential recommendations we'd like to adopt and forward to the full Board of Supervisors for discussion. So at this time, I'll turn over to Carla. Thank you. I see you waving your hand there. So go ahead whenever you're ready.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm sharing the slides, which is wonderful. And I do want to let you know that we have several people here who are around to help answer questions and can also give guidelines, including our Deputy County Executive, Casey Halcon. And let me just get started. Let's see. All right. I really do, to our chairs, really appreciate the time today. I want to note that we're a small office within the County Exec's Division of Equity and Social Justice that works with partners throughout the county and community to address human trafficking. Certainly cannot do anything on our own, and not on that list is our newly renamed Human Trafficking Task Force. But we work with a ton of county folks who are on the front line, and then with a lot of our community CBOs who are also on the front line doing direct service to human trafficking survivors. And really, it's so important to hear these 3 presentations together to get a better understanding of how the county is addressing human trafficking. For this quarter, several of our closest partners, including the CAC and Victim Witness in particular, were included in the first presentation, and along with our CBO partners. And probation and SSA are actually included in the next presentation with the annual report of the South Bay Coalition to End Human Trafficking, although we have members present everywhere if there are questions on that. So today, what are we going to do? We're going to give a brief update on the Office of Gender-Based Violence Prevention and a lot of focus on where the funding is and what's happening there. And then we'll also hear from Anton with our SAFE program, who can share some updates. Let's keep going and get right into this. All right. So here we're seeing where the bulk of the Office of Gender-Based Violence Prevention is overseeing contracts in the community. Just as a brief refresher, we had various RFPs that started or that we inherited when the office was formed in September of 2019, or that we launched on a short-term basis in 2020, 2021 or so. The hope was that we would get them all on a cycle to align so that we could change the way that we focused funding from categories of, change it to a categories of services instead of categories of violence. And so this started July 1 of 2024, and we just renewed contracts for the second year of an RFP with an option of up to 5 years renewal, depending on all kinds of factors. And we did this because many of the agencies that are serving survivors of human trafficking are the same agencies that are serving survivors of domestic violence and sexual violence. And we all agree that the focus should be on the survivor first. So trying to meet those needs, we have shifted from doing RFPs that were just for human trafficking or just for domestic violence to ones that are for survivors of gender-based violence. We have also always kept the Rape Crisis Center's services separate since we began funding those in 2020, separate from the RFP process. And in fact, this year, starting July 1, is the only space where we were able to increase the funding just a bit from about almost 2.4 million to 2.7 million. That was so that we could include advocacy services at the Child Advocacy Center because of some of those impacts to the grants and funding that have disappeared in the DA's office. So just to talk a little bit more about the different types of services that are funding that you can see on the slide. What I'll do is share a little bit about the overall process and standards to ensure that the highest quality of services provision is available for survivors. So in the same way that legal provisions reflect services by licensed attorneys and therapeutic services by licensed therapists, some of our other categories also have state mandates that must be upheld, including what qualifies, for example, as a rape crisis center, or what qualifies as a domestic violence emergency shelter. Beyond state mandates that must be met, we also prioritize both formal and informal support networks that are culturally sensitive to the clients in our own community. Deeply embedded services are contracts that require the provision of services in Santa Clara County for residents. I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice all of a sudden. Let's see if that helps. So all of our contracts, and there are 12 with various scopes, require that the provision of services are for Santa Clara County residents and are from an in-county location. Also that all contracts have to have the ability to provide multilingual support to survivors. All have to serve as a culturally sensitive, have a sense of culturally sensitive expertise for working with our very diverse ethnic populations within Santa Clara County. And we want to ensure always that service delivery is done in a manner that promotes and improves care, particularly for services to LGBTQI, to children, to youth, to families. And so these are sort of the priorities that drive us in selecting and ensuring that these contracts happen. Maintaining a high proficiency level to serve all populations is important because trafficking, domestic violence, sexual violence, gender-based violence is everywhere in our county. And so we have to make sure that residents everywhere in our county have access to this. This also includes having knowledge of the unique needs of immigrant families, of young parents, of parents struggling with mental health, developmental delays, and substance abuse issues. We've heard in past meetings about the impact and overlay of substance use and trafficking in particular, and particularly with system-involved parents who are also experiencing gender-based violence. Overall, we do this by making sure that our vendors and contractors and partners understand and utilize trauma-informed care principles in their survivor care. Interviewing staff must reflect the cultural, diverse, religious, regional, ethnic, social, linguistic, gender, and sexual orientation characteristics of the clients served. And I will say we have outstanding community partners who do this. For this one category of prevention, and actually also for education and outreach, I have to note that these have been underfunded or have been funded at lower levels when compared to our direct service, mostly because we have not been able to fund everything and have prioritized survivors in crisis and those fleeing immediate danger. All of our contracts include non-discrimination clauses, and we've made these transitions to service categories in an attempt to be the most flexible for our partners on the front lines of service, while we again are centering the need of the survivors above all else. I also want to add that we are not the only ones who are funding these important services. Although at $13.7 million, that is a large investment in our community. There are departments and offices in the county who oversee contracts that also address human trafficking in particular, and those are the ones that are highlighted on this slide, where we connect with at least, there are 6 contracts totaling almost $2.1 additional million that are in the community to address particularly human trafficking. So I want to now give a few moments of time to my colleague with the SAFE program so that she can share some updates. And here we go, Anna. And just let me know when you want to go to the next slide.
Is this on?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Anna Anton, nurse manager with the
Anna, I'm sorry. So the mic is in the lectern right there to
Oh,
your
it's right here.
right, and it's
Okay.
an invisible mic. You just start talking and we
Okay.
can hear you.
Okay. Anna Anton, nurse manager with the Safe Plus program. After the commission met last time, we were also asked to discuss budget shortfalls, resource staffing gaps, and risk to program sustainability. If you would go ahead and advance the slide, Carla. With current budget challenges, our focus right now is really on optimizing our workflows and enhancing our revenue streams. Some examples of this are services we've added, such as bringing on suspect exams earlier this summer, which really not only aids the investigation, but enhances the case for the survivor and brings in an additional revenue stream. We are also optimizing additional workflows, such as our collaboration with the California Victim Compensation Board, to once again enhance our revenue streams and ease the process for the survivor. In addition, addressing staffing gaps, we're very fortunate to right now to say we have no vacancies in our program, but the nature of this work, as we know, really does bring high levels of burnout. So we're constantly looking at how we can address that proactively and be prepared in the event of future vacancies, especially going into a year like next year with the major sporting events. So in doing so, we are focused on maintaining and building a really skilled, strong workforce through internal programs focused on trauma-informed communication and programs like our internal clinical debrief group to support our staff. And then we're looking at innovative ways, go ahead and advance the slide, of enhancing our support structure around our examination team, such as exploring the use of telehealth solutions to provide additional support to both our staff and patients. In all of this, we're also in constant collaboration with other departments to see how we might optimize our budget and exploring grant opportunities. In fact, just submitted for a grant this last week, and we'll continue to look for future grant opportunities for our department. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Anna. So I want to make sure we close by talking about the budget with an understanding that we are in unprecedented times and that there has been a shift by the federal government that we've seen in various cuts to staffing and funding of this issue of gender-based violence. But it really, excuse me, culminated in the July 4th passage of H.R. 1. So this new law delivered a multi-trillion-dollar tax cut to the richest Americans at the expense of working families and the most vulnerable. This bill includes the most significant cuts in our nation's history to Medicaid and food assistance, jeopardizing health care and food for millions of Americans and for hundreds of thousands of folks in Santa Clara County. So I want to particularly call out, among the many things that H.R. 1 does, it changes the eligibility on who qualifies for essential safety net services, and sadly, specifically makes ineligible survivors of human trafficking, as well as intimate partner violence and sexual violence. So this impacts not just our survivors, but also service delivery, makes us all wary of the way data is collected and shared, and really reduces the potential resources for the most vulnerable in our community. I do want to say that we have a lot of wonderful information to share so that people understand what these impacts are. Available on our county website, there's an info page on federal funding that can access information like that is right directly from on this slide, as well as other information. And it's important to see. There's also big concerns, I think, as everyone is planning for next year and the events, and also knowing that the fear for survivors to report if they don't have documentation for immigration services is amplified beyond a level that we have ever seen before. And that's really concerning too, and something that we all, as we're working together and meeting together, comes up quite possibly in every single meeting that we're at. How are we going to address this? How are we going to stay connected to community? And how are we going to help people get to safety? Because there are a lot of factors at play that are trying not to do that. So finally, and to end on a brighter note, we are an incredibly strong community that has been doing this work for decades and decades. We want to make sure that everyone has on their calendars October 17th, as we'll be celebrating our 32nd annual Domestic Violence Conference, which very much will overlap with themes that impact survivors of trafficking, and where we will center on collective healing and community-driven solutions as we explore sustainable approaches to prevention, safety, planning, and accountability. We hope that everyone can join us because this is very important work. And with that, I want to thank everyone, and we can go on to the next presentation, I guess. And I'll stop sharing.
Hello, everybody. Casey Halkin, Deputy County Executive. I just wanted to reinforce, I think, the point that Carla mentioned about the federal funding cuts that the county is going to be facing. I know we sound probably a bit like we're beating a drum at many of these meetings, but we are struggling to get this information out to our community so that we can have robust conversations to help the board and our associated committees prioritize where where we really want to put some limited dollars. I also wanted to note for this committee, which you may be aware of, but the Office of Gender-Based Violence Prevention has been engaging in a county-wide gender-based violence assessment and service gap analysis. These reports have taken almost a year to complete. They've been done in community, in cooperation and collaboration with many of our service providers, and we anticipate that those reports will be available this fall, and we will be bringing those forward to the board for discussion. So I know there's a lot of interest in service gaps and a service needs analysis, and this report will include human trafficking and sexual assault information as well.
Thank you, Casey. Just going to use my privilege as chair to speak a little out of turn here. Can you make sure that those reports are also forwarded to members of our commission?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay. And then we're going to go to our next presentation from the South Bay Coalition to End Human Trafficking. Sharon, I'll turn it to you.
Thank you, Supervisor. I'm Sharon Deneau. I'm the director of the South Bay Coalition and Human Trafficking. Joining me today for the presentation is Perla Flores, who's commissioner, but she's also chair of our coalition, and Jessica Jenkins, legal service provider co-chair. So covering kind of 4 key areas. We just finished our annual report, so I want to give a big shout out to Beth Dillon, our coordinator, who really worked very fast this year to compile all the data for the annual report. And each year just kind of keeps getting better and better in terms of how we can look at data in a more informative way to strategize how to better reach individuals who need services and resources. And then we'll talk a little bit more about the supporting events messaging, which was a request at the last meeting, and focus then on gaps. So we've been publishing our annual report, I feel like at least 10 years now. And so it should be an attachment for the commission. It's a lengthy report, but we provide each of our agencies the opportunity to submit information they think is helpful as it relates to human trafficking. So we've compiled our advocacy service provider data, and this, you can see that it was provided by a number of agencies, including Aki, Community Solutions, the YWCA, Golden Gate, Silicon Valley. I'm just going to do very quick high level and hopefully entice you to actually read the full report and see, take a deeper dive about what some of the demographics tell us. But this past fiscal year, 361 services were received by survivors, case management services, full comprehensive case management. You can see that a majority is female clients. I also want to highlight there at the very end that increasingly we are encouraging service providers and community solutions taking the lead on looking at intersectional screening. So for clients who may present with one form of violence, they're getting screened for other forms as well, domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking. And you are seeing some overlap there. So we're hoping that as more agencies continue to train on this type of screening tool, that we'll continue to see more of those intersections and services can be provided as a whole versus kind of spliced up. Other things to note for the report is that we're still seeing, we see 53% are adult survivors of sex trafficking. 45% of the adult clients are survivors of labor trafficking. So we are seeing a lot of labor trafficking survivors receiving services. There are 2 clients who received services for both sex trafficking and labor trafficking. So that intersection is happening as well, and 1 for domestic servitude. 12% of clients are CSEC, and 163 at-risk or confirmed CSEC youth. This is a decrease from last year. There could be a number of reasons for that. But overall, we're still seeing that CSEC referrals for services make up a large percentage of clients served. So super quick snapshot. So legal service providers. We have a handful of legal service providers who provided data this year. You can see them listed there. 2 of these agencies are no longer being funded, so next year we're not sure what that's going to look like. But for this past year, 177 survivors received legal services. The majority are adult clients. Again, worthwhile taking a deeper look because for legal service providers, the picture of who's receiving services is often quite different than law enforcement identifications or advocacy service providers. It is predominantly labor trafficking that you see in those pie charts, the blue markers. You have 40 males and 57 females who received legal services related to labor trafficking, 34 females for sex trafficking. There were some survivors, male survivors of sex trafficking who received legal services. And I want to note that because that has been a gap in our county of identifying male survivors of sex trafficking. So we're increasing accessibility to that community, and we need to keep going with that, which is great, which is a good recommendation to do. Okay. This is another way of breaking it down, just looking at labor trafficking, sex trafficking, CSEC, and domestic servitude. You can see now how many labor trafficking cases are going to our legal service providers. The other thing I want to note in our annual report, we try to give scope of how much outreach is being done. A project that we included is that we actually did a project with young women who were in Assam and Nagaland in northeast India. And so just the reach in terms of our coalition, in terms of building capacity and outreach. We did a lot of leadership development for women who are in rural areas and really trying to harness their leadership in terms of gender-based violence in their community. We've also had a very strong partnership. You'll be hearing from Valley Transit Authority about the great work that's been happening with Valley Transit VTA. And we also have a conference on October 29th that VTA is one of the co-hosts of that will really help us bring a lot of resources and building capacity to transit agencies. Outreach work, over 1,600 people have attended events and trainings in the past year, and that's a pretty conservative number. We try to capture all the work that our members are doing. And of course, we're fully in our sporting event preparation. So that is a lot of where we're spending time in terms of outreach and awareness. I will jump into the sporting event kind of overview. I've given an overview of our different working groups for No Traffic Ahead. One of the requests from the last commission meeting was to focus on messaging. And just a reminder that these are our projected outputs for the 3 large sporting events. We're really trying to ensure that there's in-person advocate response for any law enforcement operations, really focusing on missing youth. And that includes partnering with hospitality and other businesses that might be able to help identify missing youth in the area. We're focusing on things like supply chain with an ordinance. Obviously, we'll have billboard campaign, and that relates to our resource navigator that we're building, Safety for the Bay, which we presented on last time as well. And then 2 specific areas of vendors and gig economy, where we're seeing indications of trafficking and exploitation. And so we're trying to create very targeted outreach tools to those industries. So just quickly, I want to just spend a few moments on what when we're talking about core messaging, what we mean. Our work group is still finalizing messaging, but this was a request last time, so I just wanted to give a snapshot of where we are with messaging. And this is something that ideally, if other jurisdictions are buying into, this is also what they're buying into, that we really do not want to create a narrative that sporting events cause trafficking, because it's really the economic drivers underneath that drive trafficking and exploitation. So large events in general may drive up demand in multiple industries, and that's where we're seeing vulnerability. But it's not the sporting event itself. And when we have that sensationalism, it does not help efforts. So that's in our things to avoid kind of column. That's one of the reasons why we're staying away from some of the data and stats as it relates to trafficking and sporting events, because the research is really very limited, and it can be used in different ways to paint a picture that's not quite accurate. We have the benefit of having the Super Bowl 10 years ago, and so what we saw playing out on the ground is really important, but often cannot be captured in quantifiable data, at least at this stage. The other thing we want to avoid is we don't want to pathologize trafficking, and I'll give some examples of that in a minute, but essentially we don't want people thinking that trafficking only happens in a particular community or a certain person is what the picture of a victim is. We want to make sure that we're very comprehensive in how we're talking about trafficking and the different intersections. So what can we focus on? We can focus on really promoting a very positive framing of having sporting events here, and that we are prioritizing safety and access to services. And that makes for a far more enjoyable sporting event that families can enjoy. And that tourists who are coming to the area can feel secure knowing that our community has a safety first focus, and that includes really access to resources or whatever they may need at that time. We also want to make sure that we don't talk about trafficking in a way that creates a sense of isolation. Trafficking doesn't occur in isolation. It intersects with so many different industries that it's much better for us to talk about it as being part of our everyday life. And I'll show you some of the campaign that we'll be launching that kind of highlights that. And again, when we talk about the pathologizing, our county has seen survivors pretty much from everywhere in the world, including from here. So we know that we have survivors from all over the world. We've seen different types of trafficking, different modes of operation. There's a lot of diversity in the types of exploitation we've seen in our community. So again, when we have the opportunity to speak about it, it's really good to focus on kind of that diversity versus just saying we're only looking at, for example, CSEC, which some jurisdictions, they end up only talking about one piece of what we know is happening. So our messaging is going to be paired with a very colorful billboard campaign. These are the 4 images that were used for the 2016 campaign, and we're updating it so that the direction for individuals will be for Safety for the Bay, which is the resource navigator website. What you also see here is that we already have VTA has committed to putting these in their buses and light rail. So VTA is going to be one of the main kind of outlets for this campaign and drivers for this campaign, which we're very grateful for. So ideally in these posters, you're seeing a mock-up where individuals will be directed to the VTA alerts, but also to the website. These are our 4 new images, and again, this kind of relates what we're talking about with messaging, which is there are no demographics in our campaign. We're really trying to show everyday objects as they relate to exploitation to get individuals to think about it. I won't go over each image. These are draft versions. We're working with designers who've worked with us kind of over the past 10 years who have subject matter expertise. And we'll be doing different focus groups just to kind of see how it resonates with individuals. But that's an example just of our messaging. You may have also seen our messaging in San Jose Airport, which we're also hoping to scale out if this feels more accessible to some agencies. But this campaign was really focused on increasing engagement with the API community, and it was through strong partnership with San Jose Police Department. So it focused a lot on the shame and the intersectional crimes of sexual assault and domestic violence, where there may be shame and which prevents somebody from reporting or getting the help that they need. So that's another option in terms of messaging. And now we're switching over to needs and recommendations. So again, last time I did highlight that when we talk about needs and recommendations for service providers and also for outreach, it kind of falls into these three buckets, and I'll go a little further in, but I'm going to pass it over to Perla Flores to talk about the needs and gaps in advocacy service providers.
Thank you, Sharon. And as we think about the needs for survivors of human trafficking, really our focus is on safety net services, and those are the services or the spectrum of services that are aimed to promote immediate safety as well as healing, and then also lead to that long-term stability and self-sufficiency after an experience with exploitation or trauma. So the essential components of safety net services include that access to 24-hour hotline, and in the fiscal year 24-25, our service providers supported 217 human trafficking survivors through our hotline, and we also provided that in-person crisis response. We think it's very important to ensure that survivors are connected to confidential advocates immediately upon identification. It really increases safety in the short term, but also it increases engagement in the long term, not just with service providers, but also with law enforcement and other partners. So during the last fiscal year, we provided in-person crisis response to 293 human trafficking survivors. The long-term case management focuses again on increasing safety, increasing self-sufficiency, and support networks for survivors. And during last fiscal year, 379 survivors engaged in comprehensive case management services. The other piece that's also very important is access to emergency shelter or hotel. And so last fiscal year, in addition to emergency shelter, we spent over $15,000 in emergency hotel for human trafficking survivors specifically. And then the financial assistance, this covers a wide range of needs for survivors that could include crisis needs, but also support, again, in attaining that long-term self-sufficiency. And last fiscal year, 114 survivors collectively received over $175,000 in that financial assistance to cover rent, groceries, and again, any basic needs or long-term self-sufficiency needs. We can go to the next slide. So as we think about what are the needs next year with the large sporting events, I want to also include into the conversation here that we've, in terms of human trafficking services, we have lost funding. The ECM, the Department of Justice ECM collaborative grant, was not renewed, and that for us, it was like 1.5 advocates. And when I talk about the service providers, that includes Community Solutions as the point agency, but also our subcontractors, the YWCA and OCI, that apport advocates to this work. We also had a huge cut. The Cal OES human trafficking grant was reduced by $10 million across the state. And so for Community Solutions, that was a reduction of over $600,000. So we lost another full-time advocate there. And then at the end of this month, there's another grant that we have through the Office of Victims of Crime to focus on supporting young girls that are at risk for commercial sexual exploitation. That grant is also coming to an end, and there has not been any indication that it's going to be renewed. So we took those factors into account as we think about. So we conducted our gaps analysis of what do we need to ensure that we have the capacity to support identified survivors or potential survivors during large sporting events. So in terms of staffing, again, we're looking at the need for 3 additional advocates, and mostly to offset that gap in the reduction of funding that I shared. And we included here how many survivors would receive support with those additional advocates. And then the emergency shelter or hotel is always the biggest concern, and particularly as we go into these large sporting events, we know there's going to be a huge lack of accessible affordable hotels for survivors, so also looking at other options there. And then the financial assistance to cover basic needs. We're not even talking about support towards long-term self-sufficiency establishment, but really just immediate basic needs. And that's the recommendation that we have in terms of what's needed for the large sporting events and advocacy support services. Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you. And I'm going to come back to the legal service provider needs. And we kind of broke it out into 3 key areas just to better understand what we're talking about with legal service provider needs as it relates to human trafficking. There were a number of funding buckets in Santa Clara County, which one of them has been cut, which is a strikeout there. But OIR, Office of Gender-Based Violence Prevention, OSH, and SSA provide some little amounts of funding because there's a wide scope of legal remedies that I'll talk about in a second. But unmet civil needs was kind of a stopgap that got cut this year, unfortunately. There are 3 of 4 agencies who are funded under Office of Gender-Based Violence Prevention that specifically serve survivors of HT. I just learned also that the 4th agency, one of the agencies is sunsetting. They were not providing HT-specific services, but they're currently set to sunset in October. There is no other human trafficking specific legal services funding coming from our county. There were other funding options federally and in terms of the state. So you can see federal, OVC, OVW. As Perla mentioned, a lot of those grants are not being released. And there are a lot of cuts happening related to immigration and other kind of legal services. Same with the state funding. Cal OES funding has also been cut to some extent. There was a lot of advocacy. So I mentioned this last time. I just want to reiterate that there are multiple agencies in our county who do specialize in legal services for human trafficking victims, and they're currently not receiving county funding. But when we're talking about client needs, what do clients of human trafficking, what do they need in terms of legal support? We do focus a lot on immigration for a number of reasons, but I do want to flag that many survivors have complex legal needs, so they really need wraparound services. They may come into the door for immigration, but they may need housing advocacy support, or they may need family law support. There's a number, there may be identity theft, so there's a lot of legal needs that then really impact their stability as well. The other thing we want to flag is full scope representation. So some agencies and clinics can provide partial scope representation. What we're seeing is that for a lot of human trafficking cases, it's pretty complex. And so having full scope representation is really important, especially with, again, if there's any intersection with immigration for that security level for that individual. We need timely response. So for agencies who are funded in Santa Clara County, there needs to be a priority to serve clients in Santa Clara County. I may have provided the example before of a client who was told to wait 3 months for an intake. That's not acceptable for a legal service provider, especially in these times when things are moving very fast. And we know that also with the uncertainty that we have that clients and other agencies are referring clients to trusted agencies, meaning agencies that are known and accessible in the community. So we are really relying on reputation there, and I just want to flag that in terms of client needs. Continuity of representation, I'm going to have Jessica speak to what that looks like, because having the same attorney working with a client is ideal. It doesn't always happen, but we do want to strive for that. And with human trafficking cases, I mentioned the complexity, so that really means you need experts who really know the nuances in terms of needs. Gaps, we have two agencies I mentioned who are no longer funded. They served over 30 clients in the past fiscal year, and they have no alternative funding. I don't think we can assume those clients would just be absorbed by other agencies, and so I want to flag that. Another agency that provides culturally specific services for U visas and adjustment of status, they've seen their budget cut to the point where they're just not taking clients anymore. We have agencies that serve in leadership positions in our coalition, and they've seen massive cuts as well. And now they had a stopgap kind of funding through the county that was recently cut. And so again, we're just not sure where those referrals will go in the coming year. But there are people who are still providing technical assistance. So there's no funding for technical assistance. And as things are getting more complex, that's really what's needed for a lot of trafficking cases, particularly when we talk about immigration, if there are RFPs that come back. Maybe with that, I'll pass it over. I'll talk about the legal priorities. So I just wanted to flag again that it's not just immigration we're talking about. We're increasingly seeing the need for individuals who have some experience with criminal defense or victim rights. Consumer law becomes really important. Public benefits, which really, I think Bay Area Legal Aid's the only agency that's really providing that kind of support on public benefits. Housing support, workplace rights and safety, which intersects often with immigration. And then family law is a really big piece. And so with that, I'll have Jessica just give an overview of kind of what that path looks like in terms of case management.
Thank you, Sharon. As Sharon said, I co-chair the Legal Services Committee on the coalition with Ruth. We just wanted to give a little more context for what immigration representation for survivors of trafficking looks like. As you may be aware, there is a federal form of immigration relief for survivors of trafficking called the T visa. When someone applies for a T visa, obviously they need to be screened thoroughly by an experienced immigration attorney to see if they qualify. And they need to prepare an application, which itself can take quite a bit of time and require quite a bit of support because they need to write an extensive declaration recounting, in most cases, the most traumatic thing that's ever happened to them. And this is where the importance of wraparound full scope representation comes in, because you really need the support of our wonderful advocacy partners to provide the mental health support to somebody going through that. We submit the application. The adjudication time for T visas currently with United States Citizenship and Immigration Services can be up to 3 years. Once the application is approved, the T visa itself is valid for 4 years. And in many cases, people need to wait most of that time before they can move on to the next step of their immigration journey, which is applying for a green card through adjustment of status. Each step of this process, each of these steps includes significant background checks, significant scrutiny from the federal officials adjudicating these applications. The process of waiting for a green card for T visa holders has really ballooned lately, and it is anywhere between 3 and 4 years. And then if that green card application is approved, that green card holder can wait another 5 years to become a U.S. citizen. So we're talking then about a process that can take more than a decade to reach the full stability and security of legal status. Obviously, in the current climate, there's a tremendous amount of fear and uncertainty around these processes, which is why survivors really need a lot of support through every step of this journey. At my organization, we have returning clients who we've worked with for years. Trafficking survivors in particular, of all of our immigration clients, are often dealing with a tremendous amount of trauma, as I'm sure you can imagine, and need a tremendous amount of support to even just ensure their basic needs. So really benefit from some continuity in their legal service providers.
Okay, and last slide, I promise. So just in terms of funding needs, we've talked about services, legal services. There's prevention and outreach is going to be really crucial in this next year. So we're talking about consistent messaging, the billboard campaign. I mentioned these are kind of the 4 key areas where we're hoping to make sure that we have support from the county, but also from other jurisdictions. We're really trying to crowdsource funding from multiple jurisdictions because we know that these games are impacting the larger region. So safetyforthebay.org is kind of the big one, which is going to be that resource navigator for the larger Bay Area region. Costs are associated with the website and design. We need to make sure that people have access, so translation is a huge part of that. So even in-kind donations of language translation is going to be really helpful there. The other big ask is that our end product is really going to be a QR code and a website that we want to put pretty much in every public bathroom that we can around the region. We know that bathrooms are a safe place where somebody's by themselves and they can really think about what help they need in that moment. Funding in terms of outreach, billboard campaigns, as well as potentially having promotoras. Community Solutions has promotoras that go into the community to talk about forms of gender-based violence. And then the coordination piece of all of these different agencies is also a really big piece of prevention and outreach. And so I think we've submitted a proposal asking each jurisdiction for $8,000. And then if we're able to crowdsource that from multiple jurisdictions, then we'll be in really good shape to be able to provide kind of a really nice safety net and consistent messaging around the region. And with that, I'm done.
Thank you to all of our presenters today. Camille, I'm going to turn to see if there are any public commenters on this item before we head into commission discussion.
So we do not have any requests in person, but we do have one hand raised in Zoom.
One hand raised on Zoom, so I'm going to give it 2 minutes.
2 minutes, all right. So our speaker is Parent. Parent, you'll have 2 minutes to speak. Please go ahead.
Yes, hey, thank you so much for all the presentations. You know, I have 2 points after hearing them. The first one is the commonality between all the presentations is that funding is being cut to help victims of sex trafficking. And that's really a shame. We need more money and we need to help more people. But at the same time, you got to look at the inverse. How much is this county actually spending on sex trafficking? I mean, you guys know what's happening to my kids and what DA Rosen, he's spending public funds to conceal this abuse. But he fired Daniel Chung because of this, and that's $800,000 to sit at home. Who knows how much more in legal costs the county has amassed because we need to fight his lawsuit for the unjustified firing. So we need to take that into consideration. And the second thing is, you know, the DA's presentation said that the focus is on protecting children. That's just not the case. I mean, my son, he's already confirmed that my ex-wife was letting somebody rape him beginning at the age of 13, that there was unnecessary bathing with the children, that there was sexual contact between 2 of the children, and sudden drastic changes in the personality. And all that screams, do a screening for the children. And everybody here knows that. And I asked DA Rosen, please, can you oversee the Child Advocacy Center? Can you please refer my kids for a screening? And he just ignores it. He's just gonna let it go on until all the children turn 18. And everybody here, a lot of people here can actually help my kids. But like I said, you know, we're all walking on his eggshells and nobody's gonna lift a finger to help my kids because of this man. He needs to be removed from office if we're going to protect children. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, and that concludes public comment.
Thank you. To my fellow committee members, commission members, California law prohibits the disclosure of information related to an ongoing investigation of a suspected child abuse or neglect. We are not authorized by law to speak to the specifics of any particular case, no matter how horrendous the allegations are. California law requires child welfare departments to immediately cross-report physical and sexual abuse of children to law enforcement and the district attorney so that swift action can be taken when needed. The public can be assured that our county takes all allegations of child abuse and neglect seriously. That includes rapid and cross-agency responses to such allegations by the Department of Family and Children's Services, local law enforcement, the Child Advocacy Center, and the district attorney. Please rest assured that we follow through with all allegations seriously. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to my commission members for any questions, clarifications, exploration of recommendations that we could adopt as a commission and move to the full board. No lights? Okay, I'll get us started. Oh, Ruth, I see you reaching for your button.
Yes, those reports were very informative. I do want to point out that the 2 agencies that Sharon and Jessica were talking about that didn't get funding were, and these are ones that are long established and that get all the referrals and are doing a lot of the work, are Bay Area Legal Aid, where Jessica comes from and is an immigration lawyer, and the Alexander Community Law Center, the immigration practice. And so they're doing the work anyway. And so I did want to point that out since it wasn't specifically stated. Thank you.
Thank you. Perla?
Thank you. If I can add to that, the piece that's been really helpful with Catherine George Alexander Community Law Center and Bay Area Legal Aid, not only do they provide technical assistance to other legal service providers, but as this advocacy agencies, we rely on them to provide support and updates, trainings for our advocates, and particularly now, not just in the area of immigration, but also in the area of for example, social service benefits. With all the changes to healthcare access and information sharing, that Bay Area Legal Aid is the agency that we typically go to for support, and that to them not to have that funding has been really challenging.
I'm going to turn to staff. Carla and Casey, can you help us understand the implications of not having agreements with the Catherine George Alexander Law Center and Bay Area Legal Aid? In particular, I want to really focus on like where do the public benefits information, where does that happen now, if not with Bay Area Legal Aid?
Yeah, so Carla's definitely the subject matter expert on this, but I'll lean in a little bit to say this was a competitive RFP, and so we scored, the applications were scored, I think in this case by social services and subject matter experts to determine funding. So we can't speak to the applications and who applied other than those who were granted, but it was a competitive process. Certainly we have a 5-year RFP, an option to make it 5 years, but I do think there are some opportunities to rethink that time frame, given that we have some potential budget challenges that we're going to be discussing with the committees and also with the board to help direct that. But that's probably as far as I can go into that specific bucket for the gender-based violence funding, unless Carla would like to add anything.
I see. Actually, nothing to add except that to say that the scopes, and we can provide the scopes that were put out as part of the proposal, did not include like technical assistance on some of the things that are like needs today, especially because of where we're at. They were about direct legal services to survivors. I will say that we received over $2 million in proposals and had $900,000 allocated for the category. So there was no way that certainly all the needs that were proposed could be funded. Not even half the proposals could be funded. But I will also say that all of the four in the legal services, but actually all of the contracts in each of the categories are performing at, what is the word when you are like
They're meeting their goals and
They're-
deliverables.
Yes, they are meeting all the deliverables. They are at capacity. They are fulfilling full legal representation, some limited, some consults, but with the focus on more of that. There is a lot of need out in the community.
I guess the last thing I would say, Chairperson Young, is that we don't mean to say that any of the requests made by the agencies or our survivors are superfluous in any way. We recognize that the needs of our human trafficking survivors are myriad and complex, and we have been in times of abundance, and we are not there currently and will likely not be there for years to come. And so we are in a difficult position in looking to the board and the committees, along with community engagement, to look at service priority and categories that we can move forward with that limited funding. And it is a difficult decision, and it is a hard choice to make. It's a hard discussion to have. But I don't want anyone to walk away from this conversation to think that any of these asks are somehow, in any way not understood as being critically important to the community of survivors that these agencies are serving. We are very well aware of the importance of the work, and I think it holds a very close place, certainly in my heart and many others here. But we are in very difficult fiscal circumstances that necessitate some difficult choices.
Yeah, no doubt that we are. I mean, I don't think I've heard the word unprecedented so many times that it kind of becomes the norm now. Can I ask, when was the RFP issued?
It was issued in FY23. The first year of contracts started July 1, 2024. And we just started our second year. We renewed the contracts starting July 1, FY 2026.
Yeah, thank you for that. So Carla and Casey, what I'd like to ask for, and I really would love for my fellow commission members to weigh in on this, is for an off-agenda report, just so that the timeliness of it could come faster, sooner rather than later. In terms of, I'd like to see the list. I noticed the presentation included a list of contracted vendors for other human trafficking services, but I didn't see a list of our vendors that have been contracted for this. So for the off agenda to include that, so we know exactly who our partners are, and also an assessment analysis that from the time that the RFP was issued to where we are today, the earth has shifted seismically for the county here, with the introduction of HR1 and now new developments in terms of eligibility or ineligibility for survivors. And what I really would like to understand is what these changes are and how the scopes and deliverables from the original RFP address these changing landscapes, or doesn't. That's okay if it doesn't, because we built it in a time where we didn't know death and destruction was coming to our counties. Oh, that was a little dramatic. Yeah. No, I'm going to stay with that. So just to understand where federal impacts have created new gaps in our services. I see the lawyer leaning in. Hi, Mary.
Good afternoon, Mary Hannah Weir, Lead Deputy County Counsel. Just a point of clarification to the commission and the co-chair. This commission can request information from our staff but cannot direct it. And so I think generally we try to sort of rely on existing information streams of information that's already been gathered. I think some of what the supervisor you were just mentioning already exists in some form. And I think there's upcoming reports to the Children, Seniors, and Families Committee on some of this issue, and I'm sure things coming to the Board of Supervisors as well. But just wanted to clarify that as an advisory commission to the Board of Supervisors, you do not have the authority to sort of direct staff in this commission, but rather to request information. We also want to just be mindful that it can be a little tricky to provide information between meetings, but we can work on that once we figure out what information administration might be able to provide.
So, Mary, if you could lean in a little bit more, any specific tweaks I need to make to my requests for an off-agenda report, or if this needs to be made in a formal recommendation to the full board?
So long as you are flexible with how administration responds to your request and do not make a formal motion in this space, then I think we'll be fine in terms of, figuring out what information they already have pulled together, what information they have capacity to provide to this commission, and then working with County Council and the Clerk of the Board to make sure that the way we provide that information to the commission is consistent with the Brown Act.
I don't think that answers my question. Do I need to make my request? So
No, that's fine.
Let me clarify my question. How do I need to restructure my request for this to not run afoul of the authority of this advisory body?
I think I may be able to help here and say that administration is happy to look at currently available information and to see what other reports are pending in front of other bodies in front of the board, and to condense that information and make sure that all members of the commission receive it. So we can go ahead and do that. I think that would be allowable. And also, if you receive that information and it does not meet your needs, I think there would be an ability for us to provide that information at a further time to the board that could then be disseminated to the commission as well.
Fantastic. I think that we can meet in the middle there. And I know that there is the Children, Seniors, and Families Committee meeting coming up. And also you mentioned board meetings where a lot of this information will be provided. So I hope that at the end of this, we're able to understand how HR1 has impacted our landscape and really has created gaps where our scopes and deliverables in the original RFP may have not been addressing. Sound good?
We can do that, Chairperson.
Great. Does that sound good to the members of this commission? Anything else that you'd like to add in terms of requests for information? Ruth?
Yeah, I wanted to clarify that my remarks only referred to immigration and public benefits. Those were the areas where a lot of work is being done, and a lot of the survivors reach out for immigration and public benefits, and they are really struggling at both Bay Area Legal Aid and the Law Center.
Thank you, Ruth. Perla, I see your light on.
Yes. And I also want to clarify, well, first, I really appreciate Carla, Casey. I know that this, really appreciate how thoughtful you've been through this process, and I can't imagine the tough decisions you have to make. And I also want to clarify that I understand that Bay Area Legal Aid and Catherine and George were not, that wasn't part of the RFP process, but because of their tenure, longevity, and just extreme amount of expertise. I mean, Lynette and Catherine and George literally wrote the manual on TV, says that that's why it's been and because they're so generous with their knowledge, they've been a natural resource for advocacy service providers, but totally understand that was not in their scope.
They're certainly pillars of the community, Perla. We absolutely respect that, yeah.
Thank you. I'm turning, oh, so Supervisor Reyes, your light is on?
Yes, it sure is. So I have a couple of questions about the report. I know we talked a little bit about just the change in terms of where we are as some of the environment has changed drastically, right, for survivors and for those who are experiencing abuse. And I understand that there's been more severe abuse that we have seen through the CACs, through the Children's Advocacy Center. And I guess I'm wondering, how do we, in the moment, pivot as we're moving through the year? Because this is a look back, right? And then the look back allows us to understand what was going on, right? But as an advisory body that pulls in from so many different areas, it also provides us an opportunity to have real in-time conversations to pivot. And so I guess there's a couple of things there. One is, how are we going to know if say, for example, the media campaign that you have, that you listed out there, is one being effective and receptive to the folks? Are we going to consider, did we get additional calls to the different referral sources during a certain amount of period of time? How do we know that that is going to be effective? And then I'll ask my other questions as they come up.
Supervisor, just a point of clarification. The media campaign, were you talking specifically about the No Trafficking Ahead campaign?
Yeah, the No Trafficking Ahead.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
that'd
yeah.
be-
Yeah, I'll
that would
go
be
ahead and refer that to Sharon.
over here.
Hi, Sharon. Yeah, I don't know why I'm looking at, they were the last to speak, it's all
I
that,
was like,
it's.
I think you're talking about, so for the first campaign that we did in 2016, we actually did a number of different focus groups for that messaging. The ask in 2016 was to call the National Human Trafficking Hotline. And so they didn't report back a huge spike in calls, but we do have a report of the types of impressions and engagement that we had from the campaign itself in terms of billboards. That campaign was in three counties. So this time around, we don't have as much funding in terms of doing the focus groups. We'd like to do the focus groups, but it's in the same vein of the first campaign. I think we can work with VTA to get an understanding of what the impressions are there. And of course, we can see in terms of the data analytics from the website. So that's how we're going to be capturing information. Generally, if you have survivors who are self-referring, most agencies will not ask, are you here because you found out through a campaign? It's just considered a self-referral.
Sure.
And so we probably won't be able to get that in the weeds in terms of the effectiveness of a campaign. The other thing I really want to flag is one of the reasons why we want to ensure that our messaging is out there is because if we do not create a campaign and we don't have our local messaging, there are outside agencies that come in and they provide the messaging. And so it is kind of preemptively ensuring that we're setting the foundation for what our community is really trying to say when we talk about trafficking. If we don't take up that space, somebody else does.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I guess what is and I saw that there was an additional focus on the Asian community, which I really appreciate. I think we had mentioned this before, not because I had said so, but I think we had previously had conversations about the underreporting of that particular community. And I've seen it once again in this report that there is continued to be underreporting. And so when we recognize that there is an underreport, how do we as agencies make a more cognitive, proactive approach to when we have, sting operations and we target certain, say, for example, the illicit massage parlors, right? That we know that there might be a higher number of Asian-based businesses that function that way. I guess I'm trying to figure out
How can we do better?
how, yes.
So I
Thank
think
you.
one thing that I forgot to mention, but it's going to be a very powerful tool, is that we're actually doing a community assessment focused on trafficking. And what that means is the DA's office provided a lot of information in terms of different incidents over the past 4 years. We're looking at trends from that, but we're also looking across all of our agencies. Where are there areas of vulnerability that we can look at further as it relates to communities, different populations? So for example, with regards to substance use, can we do better in terms of that cross-identification? Another example would be unhoused populations. Where are we seeing that happening within our county? Can we increase access there? Language access is a huge one that we've brought up numerous times. The Victim Rights Advocacy Project, VRAP, that was a big one with language access. So the community assessment, I'm hoping, should be ready by the next Human Trafficking Commission meeting, and that should provide some of those places. So one thing I noted in our assessment, probation department is an agency that does more screenings than really any other department as it relates to young people. And their capacity has really been to focus on clear concern for CSEC. When we are able to, and when there are resources available, can we focus on the possible concern youth? Because the possible concern youth make up a very large percentage, and those youth could likely benefit from really heightened services. I realize that this is probably not the right time in terms of our funding capabilities for the county, but those are areas where we have data that we can proactively kind of look at how we could do more. So I hope to present that information next time with a community assessment that's being done with the DA's office and the task force.
I look forward to learning more through that assessment, but in the meantime, I'm also wondering, how do we create more awareness or maybe support for the different departments that may not have the level of expertise that is in this room? And I'm looking particularly at the Department of Family and Children's Services. If we know that we are having a higher instance or a significant number of CSEC survivors, how do we better train those folks who are taking the calls so that, because here I see, the number of evaluated out calls is concerning to me. And I don't know whether these are multiple calls on the same youth, right? And so there's a different set of eyes seeing the same thing. I'd love to see if maybe offline we can figure those pieces out, because we know that our foster care youth are very much at risk, right, at some of the highest risk. And then I think there's different kinds of responses or trainings that can happen at the different age ranges. I saw the number in terms of under the age of 18 was the largest, right? I think normally that's probably the highest number. And so then what are we doing in terms of training, especially as we are coming up for next year? Not 1 month ahead, not 2 months ahead, but now doing as much training so that our wheels are greased, so that when there is the height of all of the sports events, that when people are calling in, those folks who are taking the information can ask maybe some more in-depth questions or understand some additional red flags for that matter.
I think that one thing I meant to mention during our presentation is that it's really crucial that the county agencies that currently have dedicated staff or positions that focus on trafficking, including child welfare and probation, that during this time where there are different cuts, that we do not see those positions go away, because it's absolutely crucial to have specialized individuals. So the coordinator position within DFCS, I don't know if that's been filled yet, but that is a crucial position.
Wait, what position?
It's a coordinator, CSEC coordinator position.
I don't
That
know,
position,
but I
that
can
was
ask.
Marie Maubousson, who was in that position and retired. Now, I don't know if that position's been filled, but that individual was really responsible for ensuring that there was training across the agency and then with foster parents. So we need to keep the specialized positions in our government agencies as we're moving forward, especially for next year.
Who's that?
Could I answer on training as well? Hi. Yeah, so we do have a robust training program and Office of Gender-Based Violence also through the coalition. And they're all those agencies are part of the coalition, and also we have a dedicated training group. And we've also done several surveys where we've tried to determine what areas they would want to be trained on. We're regularly having Trafficking 101, immigration, but we're also having specialized trainings also through Community Solutions. There's a series of trainings, and they're covering topics like health, and they're also looking at this current climate and issues that would not have arisen had it not been for this current climate.
So let me ask you about what kind of different, or is there a different approach because of the different climate? So if we are assuming that people are not going to come forward and report, then what is it that we are changing in our training to encourage maybe our LEA officers, our advocates, or whoever it is in the different positions that hold that kind of one-to-one interaction with the community or with schools or whomever it is, so that there can be a messaging of more additional trust, of I don't know what it is, but,
Well, I
but
mean,
what is it that we're
when
doing
we do
differently?
in person, we put signs on the door, private event. We also have it in a lot of the trainings in churches or community centers where people feel comfortable. We spread information by word of mouth through trusted messengers. And we're also covering issues like healthcare, et cetera. And we're cognizant of the fact that a lot of this is being reported. And I know the immigration lawyers in particular are looking at what, they're really giving people a risk assessment so they can make their own decisions as well on whether they want to move forward as well. But people are reaching out. I mean, I've done trainings in churches where there's 150 people in Morgan Hill and Gilroy, but we're also, I know Councilmember Doan is organizing trainings through businesses that are trusted, and they're trying to spread the word. San Jose is doing it as well. So, and also our trainings on health issues. We're having, public benefits. I don't know why I can't
A
get
phone
this
call is
off.
not going to get you off track. I know
Yeah,
that for
it's
sure.
not letting me.
You're
It's
hyper
just-
focused.
Yeah, and specifically, we've brought in people on health and public benefits to talk about how to navigate that. But at each point, we've pointed out that rapid response is there. As a matter of fact, in our trainings, we mobilize rapid response as well to be available at the time. So we're definitely adapting. And we
Okay.
have found people are showing up.
So there's one rapid response network, or those who are
1,000 people
are
they have.
adding a level of confidence or trust with the community. And is there maybe some language that we can help encourage for folks to utilize to help continue to bring people in? And I don't know what that is. I don't know that we're going to determine it here, but if there is something that we all know about it.
We are
including
putting
myself.
out, and I'm hoping that the county will sign on to it, but a fact sheet in various languages that talks about the repercussions if there's any type of retaliation and what people's rights are. So it's with a graphic artist, and we're trying to disseminate this as widely as possible. And I'm also hoping that, county council will approve it. And if not, then we're prepared to put it out through CBOs.
Well, I'm happy to be supportive to move any of that through our committee for children's, seniors, family. I know I'm saying it wrong, but I'm even the chair of that committee, CSFC. I'm just trying to learn more and then encourage our partners who are in our community to learn more from us. I'm trying to learn from all of you. And so if there's anything that we need to do or say differently, let us know so that we can continue to do, to relay that message and use our trusted partners. In the end, what I'm wondering is, what is it that we're doing differently to make sure that our message continues to permeate into our community and for us to continue to gain trust among folks, knowing that it's going to be even more difficult as time moves along. And then, what was my next?
Can I just say one more thing while you
Yes,
think
of
of your
course.
next, which is a lot of us have pivoted to the phones for
To
our
the what?
practice, where we'll ask people if they feel more comfortable not coming in person for interviews. And so that has made a difference, or Zoom if they feel comfortable. So a lot of them are wanting to work that way with us.
Yeah.
And then meeting them at venues, like we have. There's a case we're doing with county council where we're meeting people where they want us to meet them to get their data and things like that.
Yeah. I guess as I speak to different service providers, and I'm thinking right now about some medical, like our some of our community clinics, and when I ask them, are people coming in less than what we normally have seen? And they have said to me, surprisingly, no. Surprisingly, they continue to come. Actually, we're seeing more than we normally would have seen. And so I'm not sure exactly what kind of messaging they're using, and maybe they've just become trusted providers of our community, and so they've earned that trust. People continue to come in. But then I hear, of course, and I see for myself, when I go to the east side, that there's restaurants that are empty, there's places that are not as active as they used to be before. And so I guess I'm not sure what is the kind of messaging that will help, and especially when you layer on top this the human trafficking sensitivity. And so if there's anything that we need to use to continue to send out the message to our service providers and our partners and our stakeholders, please let me know so that I can pivot in the moment, because that would be very helpful. And then I'll check on that CSAC coordinator to see if they've been filled, if they haven't been.
Supervisor, before we go to your next question, I saw some lights over here and a signal for comments on this particular discussion track.
Absolutely.
So Perla, and then
So I really appreciate the conversation and Sharon bringing up in terms of having those positions. One of the things that was really helpful when DFCS had a CSEC coordinator and they had a transformation team, which is a multidisciplinary group that works on issues around commercial sexual exploitation of children and prevention. And it was really, with this group, we put together a multidisciplinary logic model and looking at specifically like what are and so I think bringing that group back together, I'm not sure if the transformation team is still meeting. We used to have advocates be a part of that process, and that hasn't happened, but I think that that's really an opportunity within an existing group to develop targeted messaging and training and outreach activities with a focus on large sporting events in the current climate and around how to increase safety for potential victims. So that's one area where I think that we can move really quickly. And then I think within the coalition also there's groups that are doing a lot of work around, like for example within the Advocacy Services Committee, we have our own outreach plan and looking at how can we continue to ensure that our agencies, our services feel accessible and safe for community members. So happy to look at where that's happening, because a lot of that messaging does have to be very targeted. Yeah. So happy to have a conversation around where that's already happening and where there's some spaces that we can bring back those multidisciplinary groups to do that work.
I appreciate that quite a bit. Thank you. Was there another comment?
There was Commissioner Green and I believe Commissioner Little wanted to weigh in on this conversation.
Yeah, I was moved by some of your comments about doing things differently. I think that's very important, that we don't take for lack of a better word, a traditional approach and be content with the results if they're not really meaningful. So inspired by the commission, VTA worked very closely with the South Bay Coalition, Santa Clara Human Trafficking Task Force, San Jose State University, and we did something very unique. I think it's worth sharing to that point, and that is we contracted with an organization called STARS. Some of you may have been familiar with it, where we had a survivor work with our bus operators and conduct a series of field scenarios where they trained them directly on being able to recognize the signs of human trafficking in particular. And that was 2-3 hour trainings and tabletop exercises. It was an extraordinary experience and very impactful for the operators. And they spread the word, and we'll continue to build on that type of training. We have a conference that's going to take place, I think it was mentioned already, on October 29th. We will build on some of the lessons learned, if you will, and share more of that information. But I just wanted to stress how important it is to think differently and take novel approaches in this space, especially with the constrained resources and changing environment. So we're working very hard to do that and to be continued partners to that end. So I just wanted to share that note.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Member Green. We turn to Member Little.
Yeah, I just wanted to confirm that the DFCS transformation team still is in existence. I think that the that position that was referenced, I think, is in the process of potentially being hired. But the transformation team and the analyst and everybody responsible are still in place. And I think, if there's questions about training, I think that's something that we would want to take back and absolutely open to seeing what else we can do to train staff.
Dan, did you say the transformation team is still meeting, but is the CSAC coordinator filled?
That's the position. I think they're moving through the process. The transformation team and the supervisor over the team are still in place. Yep.
And how long has that been vacant?
I'd have to go back and double check. I think it's been a while.
Okay.
On the subject of training, I wanted to turn to our Office of Labor Standards Enforcement. I know this is your first meeting. Welcome to the commission. You're officially a member now. Jesse, could you tell me, I know that OLSC, we saw the spreadsheet in terms of contracts for outreach, engagement, and training. Do you have, I hate to put you on the spot, but anything to add to the conversation in terms of such trainings occurring out in community and in where they might be, if there's a cross-section here with labor trafficking, the Office of Labor Standards Enforcement?
Yeah, thank you for having me, everybody. I'm Jessie Yu with the Office of Labor Standards Enforcement. Just like Supervisor mentioned, we do have contracts with community partners that provide outreach and education services. Our services are geared mostly towards in-the-field, door-to-door engagement, as well as training for businesses and workers. Ruth will be able to speak more towards the human trafficking element on our advice line and what she's seeing on that side. But our partners do provide trainings to workers and businesses on the topic of human trafficking. I'll have to check in terms of how many happened last year, but that is one of the topics that they do engage community on.
So that's an existing resource that any member of this commission can make a request of, right?
Yes.
So I'm trying to tie some things here. So Councilmember Dwan, I'm really encouraged to hear that you're leading a charge with our small businesses, and I hope that either OLSCs are involved as a source of, as a resource for you, or it will be.
I appreciate that, and I think is a good collaboration from, all the stakeholder, if you will.
Thank you. Supervisor Reines, I know you had another question. I'm going to turn that back to you.
Actually, I'll comment with Councilmember Dwan about some of the work that we've already done while I was there for our gender-based violence prevention work plan. There's a work plan already there, and there's a lot of really great work that many of these service providers contributed to. And so I think if maybe offline we can talk about that and revisit some of the trainings, because actually you reminded me, Member Green, that we had tried to include more trainings into our police department, but I know there's issues about time and, where and how we do all this. But if there isn't one person that's pushing the item and advocating for trainings to continually happen, it's easy for those things to fall off, right? Especially if there's so overwhelmed with, with a lack of staffing and all that. And so I'd love to discuss with you offline how we can maybe refresh that conversation. We had done a video of a survivor that was shared with the police department. The best thing is to have in-person person come in, but I know because there's so many different training needs for our San Jose Police Department, it's difficult, but it can be done. So
Absolutely. I'll look forward to have our conversation offline.
perfect, I love it. And the next question that I had was really
Supervisor Arenas, I'm sorry. I couldn't see it from this angle, but I've been notified by staff that Member Villa's light is on. Is that right? No? Oh, okay, never mind. False alarm. Thank you, staff, for watching out and being mindful of everybody. Ruth, you have your light on still. Did you want to put a final comment on this?
Yes, about the OLSC advice line. Sometimes people have called and they think they have a wage theft problem, but then when you talk to them more, you screen and you determine that it could be human trafficking. And so it's really helpful. And in all the languages, English, Spanish, Tagalog, Visayan, Vietnamese, and Mandarin, they're screening for human trafficking. And also in outreach, they're screening for human trafficking. So I think that's very important as
Thank
well.
you for that. Supervisor Arenas, I'll turn back to you.
I'm going to hold off on my question and I'll ask it offline. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Rosen?
Yeah, just wanted to ask Sharon a question. On October 29th, there's a human trafficking conference that's coming up in San Jose. It's an all-day event. And I just wondered if the Bay Area Host Committee was invited to that event, and if so, who from the Bay Area Host Committee is coming?
Wow. Adam is coming from the Bay Area Host Committee. We're inviting all of our friends. I think we invited you as well, so hopefully you have that on your calendar. Yes, and they'll be speaking in the
it
morning.
is on my calendar.
Okay, good.
I know
was
I'm
like,
coming.
I just wanted to double check.
So just asking who else.
Yes, thank you for that. I don't know if Adam wants to speak more to that.
Thanks. I'm Adam Lewis. I'm with the Bay Area Host Committee. I'll be at the event, and we're going to be encouraging other staff to attend as well.
So can you recap that event again, just so that we can have it for everybody? I think maybe members of the commission may be interested.
It's on October 29th. It's at let me look at my calendar real quick. I'll tell you where it is.
It's the Doubletree Hilton San Jose by the airport, who's also a sponsor of the event. And I can send the flyer to the clerk to send out to the commissioners. Does that work? Okay.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any other discussion points from the commission? No. Member Silver?
Okay. They both work. Thank you.
I saw yours.
Sharon, I think I had two quick questions that may best be directed to you. One was related to Supervisor Arenas' question about collecting metrics on the success of the communication campaigns in some ways, but some clients were being considered basically self-referral. Is there a best practices reason why we wouldn't try and collect that information, or couldn't collect it through a survey or something after the interaction?
I think probably the primary reason, and Jessica can also speak to this, is just the nature of the level of trauma somebody's feeling when they're coming in, especially as a self-referral, just being really unsure that it feels you're really just trying to hone in on the core high-level information that you need to proceed. It also, we're now trying to collect it for our annual report. So I'll say, actually, even in general, we had not been collecting information about how legal service providers are even getting referrals. So now we're making the effort to even see how many individuals are self-referrals, and it's really important, especially as we think about what services are accessible in terms of being on the street and nearby. If there are self-referrals, we need to have hotlines. We need to be able to have people walk through the door. So we're just starting to really get better at that. So hopefully we can evolve to a stage where we can go back and circle back and find out more about, did you hear about a campaign, or is it a hotline number, or things like that. We have anecdotal kind of information from survivors, but nothing formal right now.
Perfect, because it was leading into my second question, which I think you're already ahead of me, which is knowing the really challenging budget landscape we're heading into. It feels like every penny counts, and so figuring out what we're getting the most bang for our buck in terms of a communication campaign seems important. You said something a moment ago about, in essence, a communication vacuum. If we leave a vacuum, someone else is going to come in and capture that communication space. I was left feeling like that's a bad thing, but I
Good. That was my intention.
See, we're reading each other. But I'm curious as to why, or is there a partnership opportunity that could be potentially cost savings if there's a vacuum, but we know someone else potentially or some other organizations might step in and work in that space as well? Could you just explain that a little bit?
I think really just high level, the human trafficking movement has evolved over the years, but what we've seen is that there continues to be an element of sensationalism that doesn't actually serve our local efforts. And if we have an outside, and when I'm talking about outside agencies, there are groups that are not even from California that will be coming to the region. They do not know our local landscape. They don't know Santa Clara County is one of the most diverse counties in the nation, so they won't have familiarity really with the cases that we're seeing. They may actually end up just pigeonholing and focusing just on CSEC. And that would be really lost messaging for us, because we're trying to change that narrative that has often hurt survivors.
Perfect. Thank you.
Supervisor Inez?
Can I ask, Sharon, what is the kind of messaging so that we know when we see it that is actually damaging to a survivor, just in kind of a broad sense?
I mean, I can present it, or I can send you examples, but when we lock in a demographic, so if you start really old images of trafficking included small white children in chains.
Oh,
like if you Google human trafficking, you might see, and that's really not how human trafficking often presents.
Right.
Can it present that way? It can. Does it often
Sure.
present that way? No,
Sure.
because it's really hard to show coercion in terms of imagery. And so that's one of the challenges: is what language do you use? How do you be culturally responsive without pathologizing a community, so that people start thinking
Right.
it's only this community that does
Right.
the A, B, or C. Does that help a little bit?
No, that is absolutely helpful, and actually one of the other data points that stood out to me was that the highest number of ethnic groups was Latinos, and so I also wonder, like, so then what is the messaging also? How does it differ? How do we make sure that we speak to Latinos in a way that creates more referrals or more reports, or everything, prevention.
I wanted to add some negatives. First of all, people seem to think that there has to be chains, also that it has to be a criminal group. I was an expert witness, and I couldn't believe on the other side that the attorney was thinking that had to happen, that it had to be, and that you couldn't come on a visa, and then be exploited. And then the late Reverend Moore showed me the post-training. I think I mentioned this before on trafficking. And I like the one on domestic violence, but the trafficking, all of the traffickers were Latino. And it was horrible. And we raised our concerns as a coalition, and personally I did, and they changed it. And they don't show who the traffickers are, and it's much better now. But there are a lot of misconceptions, and people's prejudices and biases can seep in.
Yeah, understood. Thank you.
To my commission members, I feel that that this is something that we want to lean into, the messaging of this, and that there's a campaign that Sharon has been working on with her colleagues, but it still is out there on its own. And what I gleaned from today's conversation is that there is an opportunity and a desire for this commission to weigh in and be your thought partners on the messaging. And there is a wealth of lived experience in terms of communications specific to specific communities of our county. Sharon, I hate to put you on the spot. Would that be a welcome partnership for you if we were to have our imprimatur on this and then to be your adopted thought partners?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Let's do it. Yeah.
And then I want to also turn to Adam with the Bay Area Host Committee. Thank you for being here today. You were a new face, and I just assumed you were with the district attorney's office. I'm sorry. Yeah. Have you been able? Did you want to introduce yourself? And have you been? And my question to you is: has the Bay Area Host Committee been able to weigh in, or is planning to, or considering to adopt the messaging as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm Adam Lewis. I'm the Director of Community Impact for the Bay Area Host Committee. I know we have an update coming up here in a little bit, but short answer to your question is yes. We've been in constant contact with Sharon, as well as the U.S. Attorney's Office. And as you can imagine, we are a region-wide organization, but focus on creating transformative experiences that happen all across the Bay. And so that requires coalitions from across the 9 counties. And so short answer is yes. Longer answer is we're really looking forward to just digging in with commissions like this.
Thank you, Adam. Supervisor Reyes, your topic of messaging certainly has struck a chord with this commission. Thank you for the robust discussion. What I'd like to consider for this commission to consider is a motion to ask. I thought about a motion, typically as an advisory board, we would adopt a recommendation to send to the full board for approval. In this instance, it would be a recommendation for the Human Trafficking Commission to adopt the regional messaging campaign, say Safety for the Bay. But seeing that the campaign is still under development, I really would like to see us be able to have more direct engagement with the work, but not have to delay through the procedural channels. So I'd like to entertain a motion that we send a recommendation to the full board of supervisors to authorize the Human Trafficking Commission to sponsor and/or adopt the Safety for the Bay campaign and its related messaging tracks.
I'll second that, and I think so the motion is so that it just cross-references to the board, so that they can then give us give our administration direction to work with us as an advisory.
As an advisory body, we can't adopt a campaign. We can only make a recommendation to the board. I'd like to have our recommendation to the board be to give us the authority to adopt. And I'm actually not the maker of the motion. I'm asking for someone to, I'm asking for this commission to consider the motion and then make the motion.
Oh, okay, well, I'm happy to make that motion, and I'll look for a second.
Second.
Surprise. Thank you.
Everybody good with that? Yeah, I think, okay, so Camille, will go to a general vote. We don't have to go through each commissioner. That means that if anyone wants to object or abstain, we'll hear you loud and clear too. No worries.
So just a general vote for, okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All abstain? Okay, motion passes unanimously.
Great, thank you so much. I think, were there any other lights or other points of discussion? The motion doesn't end the meeting. We could still have more motions come out of this. No? Okay. Looking to the lights, want to make sure. Okay. To the district attorney's office, hold on, let me flip back to those pages on your presentation. I feel like you've made really solid recommendations. That I'd like to sorry, my pages are now mixed up. I wrote all over them and was flipping through them with you. But back to your initial recommendations. What is that? Okay. It's at the bottom of the pile.
I think what you're looking for is the slide about analysts, investigators, and I think maybe
Yeah,
maybe
I
there's
found my
some-
slide.
got
Thank
it.
you. Thank you, Jeff. Our packet, page 12, I don't see a slide number on here, but the staffing challenges for large-scale sporting events, you indicate there's no dedicated funding to cover overtime for investigations and extended operations. Do you have a cost estimate or estimate around what that gap, the monetary value of that gap is?
I don't have that on hand, but I can certainly speak to, I think, Josh Singleton, who's our lieutenant over the task force, is probably the best person to answer that question, so I can certainly reach out to him and ask him to provide that information.
That would be really helpful. I understand. I know that the landscape that we're looking at, the financial economic landscape, is barren and really challenged, and every day seems to bring new cuts to our ability to do the work that we do. But the big year of sports bonanza is coming, and that train is moving forward, right, Adam? There's no stopping it. So it's a huge responsibility that we make sure we're prepared for that. So if you could send those numbers our way. Thank you, and I'd like to add that back to continue this conversation at the next Human Trafficking Commission meeting to delve further into the fiscal needs of our funding gaps here. The ongoing staffing gaps, the lack of a dedicated data analysis to track cases, outcomes, and cross-agency coordination. On the next slide for creative funding opportunities, is that what you were responding to with cross-departmental funding pools?
That was more looking at how we deal. It would be more like what you were referencing before with issues of overtime. So, for instance, is there a way to have flexibility for our departments to fund overtime for an event rather than specific to a specific agency?
Mm-hmm. So for the creative funding opportunities, I look to my fellow commissioners if this is a set of recommendations that we feel comfortable moving to the full board for consideration and discussion.
Yes.
That was easy consensus. Yeah. And then I just want to give everybody a moment to look at that slide, or if you're able to throw that slide back up onto the screen so that the commission members have a chance to look at it.
Chair, or what number is it on the?
It's our packet page 14. That's what I have it here as.
Thank you.
It says the first recommendation is to explore reassignment of vacant analyst or program positions from other departments to support the DA's Human Trafficking Task Force staffing needs. The second creative funding opportunity here is establishing a cross-departmental funding pool. It's a fund specific to event response, allowing departments to draw down for overtime or surge staffing. And then to create public-private partnerships, engage with event organizers, hospitality industry, and local and national CBOs to supplement survivor services and prevention efforts. There you go.
Yeah, I think I just wanted to comment on the one recommendation. I really think it's going to be challenging at this particular moment to really dive into the cross-departmental funding without having our targets yet from the county. We're expected to get those in October, and I think that'll give departments, at least within the county infrastructure, a little better understanding of what they're going to have to deal with individually. And that's my only concern about that particular recommendation.
Would your concern be I mean, that's an operational concern that is important. Would it just mean that we bring up this conversation after the targets have been identified in October?
Yeah, I think it would, and I'm just speaking as a department head, I think it would give me a much better understanding of what I have at my disposal, or what I'm not going to have at my disposal.
Yeah, so I still would like to forward these recommendations to the full board for consideration and discussion, and then with the caveat that the cross-departmental funding pool discussion should be aggressively pursued after staffing targets and budget targets have been identified in October. Would that be fair, Sheriff? Yeah. And any other considerations for this? Let me hand this to Sylvia. I think she's looking for it still. Supervisor Arenas?
Yeah, so I'm wondering about the public-private partnership and in this engagement with the event organizers, hospitality industry, and local national CBOs. Who is going to be lead on that, and how is this body going to support it?
I'll turn to staff before we, yeah. Go ahead.
Our coalition is kind of trying to bridge that gap right now. One of the ways is through that conference we're having on October 29th. So we're doing really targeted outreach right now to hospitality industry. Motel 6 is already going to be providing a workshop. They have a really robust way of working with law enforcement on potential trafficking cases. So that's kind of one of the main ways we're trying to build momentum with the October conference. We're going to be doing direct outreach also with the task force to high-risk hotels, where we're actually going to them, providing them key information, and asking them to engage in a few ways, including putting up QR codes that link them to missing children who are in our wider region. So there's a few ways that we're trying to engage hospitality. I can provide more information in the next commission meeting and kind of just provide that picture.
I see. So it's more of a partnership. It's not necessarily tapping into external revenue, an external revenue source.
I would love that.
I would love that for you too.
Would love that.
I think there's an opportunity as these three major sporting events that I really know nothing about, that we can take advantage of all of those affiliates that come in and do business in our region to say, we need this certain amount of money to help with our campaign, to help with our public safety, to help with our transportation, so that it reduces these kinds of incidents. And I wonder if you're going to do it, Sharon. I'm not sure who's doing this, who's taking the lead. Is it this group as a collective? Is it, an opportunity for us to discuss it at a later meeting so that we can figure out the roles that we can all take, so that it doesn't become so burdensome on one person or one agency?
They might listen to you better than they do to me. So, it'd be great to have the commission engage the hospitality community more proactively. I think the first Super Bowl, we actually had the Chamber of Commerce as a commissioner.
I was thinking the same thing. Yeah, I was thinking how can we bring some honorary commissioners for the time being so that they can understand what we're trying to accomplish. That's a great idea.
I think that's a great idea. Supervisor, would you like to make a motion for this commission to extend an invitation?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'll make that motion to, and I don't know exactly who those key stakeholders could be. I think the idea is that we bring in some of the business stakeholders. Who is the best to do that? And who are we supposed to target, and who's supposed to ask? I don't know. And I don't know if we want to just have an offline conversation about it. But yes, absolutely. I'd love to make a motion to invite some honorary commissioners that pertain to the business and sporting and hospitality industry.
Supervisor, if I may ask for a clarification. Hi. Mary Hannah Weir. This is perfectly fine motion. Just clarification as to a couple options that the commission may have to engage folks. Sharon is exactly right. The Chamber of Commerce used to be a member of this commission, but they've essentially stopped coming for many, many years. So I think you might think of there's a lot of different creative ways to engage folks, including that you can invite folks to be, for example, to give a presentation and to speak with the commission. They don't always necessarily have to become a member of the commission to be invited, to be regularly here.
Yeah, I know, and thank you for that. I didn't mean exactly that they would be just members and not active, but I meant, and I don't know how we decide what kind of role that they take, but it could very well be that they bring us some information about what they've found in another city if they're doing a study trip, or I'm not making that noise. Can we present on a particular on our campaign, our public campaign when they actually attend, they commit to attending to one meeting every quarter, or whatever it is. I just think that it's important for their role to be a little more formalized, rather than somebody's going to tell them something at some point before, next March.
I agree, and I'm happy to second that motion for us to extend invitations to participate in the commission meetings, either as honorary members, ex officio members, whatever fancy title that we think would be appropriate for their role. I'm going to also add to that a request for further information from Sharon, from our coalition, from Adam with our Bay Area Host Committee, and also from our staff, Office of Gender-Based Violence Prevention, the Office of Labor Standards Enforcement, with your collective wisdom in understanding pieces of the landscape, which, if you could provide us with a set of recommendations, just who would be your wish list for partners to be in the room with us?
We'll have to get back to you at a later date with a wish list.
Sure.
I also just wanted to say thank you to the co-chairs and to the committee. Unfortunately, we do have to head to a different meeting at this time. But I also did want to say that from the host committee's perspective, this is obviously a regional effort, and we really do have to be mindful of that we have messaging that resonates in all of the different counties and all of the different cities around the Bay Area. And so our direction in align with a specific messaging campaign right now is being worked out with the U.S. Attorney's Office. And we are consistently still working with local partners to be able to make sure that it resonates with folks here in the local community. And really just want to say thank you. And we really look forward to being back at this commission if you'll have us.
Oh, yeah, you're part of the wish list.
Can I ask you something about the U.S. Attorney? Homan said that ICE will be here at the sporting events. And do you have some assurances from them that it's safe for people to go to these sporting events?
I'll have to check in with our head of security as well as our lead on government affairs and get back to you. But I appreciate the question.
Through the chair, I have a follow. Oh, I'm so sorry. I don't know if you're the co-chair.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in here for a minute. In terms of figuring out who from the host committee we should be engaging with, that's probably an offline conversation with the elected officials that are here. And that's if we want to try to coordinate something like that. And I do think that, sort of adding a little bit to what Adam said, there's a regional effort to try to have the messaging and the branding consistent all across the Bay Area. And I think it would be helpful for our county to be a part of that, so that we can contribute our thoughts and so forth as to what we think that messaging and branding should be. But I think this is an issue where the messaging and branding should be consistent across the whole Bay Area. So what that means is maybe each county, each stakeholder might want the messaging or branding to be slightly different, but we're not going to make the perfect the enemy of the good, and nobody's going to get every single thing they want, but we're going to benefit by having consistency. So I want to direct, to the extent I can direct or not direct, but I'm going to say, because I have a First Amendment right to do that, that I want our county to participate and work in partnership and collaboration so that everything is consistent across the Bay Area. So I don't have any idea what the particular branding is or the particular messaging is. I'm not an expert in that, but I do want it all to be the same. So I don't want ours to be different than in other counties or different throughout the region. So that would be kind of my direction.
Can I also flag, if I have not kind of stated this before, but No Traffic Ahead is a regional work group. So we currently have at least 5 counties who are participating in that work group. I've been on multiple calls with County of San Francisco, San Mateo is on board, Alameda County is on board. These are core counties that we need partnership from. So when we're talking about the development of the campaign messaging and core messaging, it is regional. I think what I'm hearing is that there might be a separate kind of messaging that's coming out of government agencies, and that's fine, but I just wanted to clarify for the work that we're doing in terms of community access to resources, there is very much a regional approach because we cannot do it on our own.
Okay, I hear you, and what I'm saying is I'd like it to be consistent across the region, period. Okay, I don't care whose it is, you know, it doesn't, but I think that's important. So, you know, I think we need to find a way to, for our county and some of the other counties and the different stakeholders, nonprofit, law enforcement, et cetera, hospitality, different industries, to try to kind of work this all out together. So Adam's here in some capacity from the Bay Area Host Committee. It's a large group, but maybe he can take back our desire in this county for us to work in partnership and collaboration with the host committee, which, as I understand, is going to be a standing committee going forward, not just for when there's a big event, but kind of the recognition that there's big events here all the time. So we're going to have a standing host committee, and so this will give us a good opportunity to work with your committee to come up with something that's going to be really terrific for the whole Bay Area.
Supervisor Arenas?
Yes, and listen, I want to make sure that we're uniformed in our messaging. I love the creativity in this campaign that I'm seeing. It's the messaging is being relayed very differently, and it's capturing at least the reader. Being me, it really captured me, and I'm hoping that it does the same for others, right? And so I know that our Bay Area has a different kind of a culture, and I'm not sure it translates through the U.S. Attorney's Office. And so, Adam, as much as you can, express that we have a regional flavor and culture and messaging that has already been invested in, and as much as we can coalesce the kind of messaging that is going to come from the U.S. attorneys. I really would not want a federal agency to supersede a local effort in terms of something so important as human trafficking is. And I hate to say it, no, I don't hate to say it, but there is not a lot of confidence for many of us at the federal level. And so I don't know that there's going to be care and love and consideration that has been invested locally as as will come from the federal administration. So I know your host committee may have a different vibe and may have a different interpretation and may be able to provide a different direction based on the direction that you get. Here, I'm just saying we have our work done, and we're basically giving it to you. And so hopefully that could be considered. And to the district attorney's point, I think that if us as electeds need to get involved in some way so that our message can be heard differently, then I think that's what we need to do, because we have a different voice outside of this advisory body. Did you have something to?
Yeah, I'm happy to just say, I just want to say thank you for saying that, first of all. And second of all, in the spirit of that, that's why we're here.
Perfect,
Is that
thank
we
you.
don't know what we don't know.
Right.
And so being able to hear from community and those representing community is vital to the process. And I think to DA Rosen's point is, we want to make sure that things are consistent, and we don't want perfect to be the enemy of extremely effective. But I really, really appreciate that, and we welcome any engagement from the community.
Thank you. Thank you, Adam. And then is it okay if we follow up with you so that we know what next steps to take, or will you follow up with us? We
Either
call
way.
you or you call us?
Yeah, either way works. I'm more than happy to provide contact information to you and your colleagues offline.
Lovely. Thank you. I'd love that. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Camille, I'm going to check back with you. I think there was a motion on the floor. Do we still need to go to a vote?
I believe with the motion, yes, we do. Should I go ahead and call for a general vote?
Okay, let me recap real quickly. It was a motion made by myself, right?
I believe you.
Or DA Rosen?
No, I believe it's by Supervisor Arenas.
Okay.
Mhm.
And
For
then
the second motion.
So the motion to forward the creative funding opportunities.
So one moment, let me just recap what I have. I believe I have the motion by Supervisor Arenas to invite key stakeholders relating to that pertain to the business,
yeah, to
sporting,
join
and
the commission.
hospitality industry.
Uh-huh.
in a
And I
capacity.
seconded that motion.
Correct.
Okay,
that
so we'll
motion.
vote on that one.
Okay. So, you also mentioned the request for, one moment, let me just recap. Okay. The request for a set of recommendations on the stakeholder wish list, I believe.
Say that again, I'm sorry?
A request for a set of recommendations on who would be on your wish list, who you'd like to be in the room with us. As you mentioned.
Actually, Camille, I'm going to start with let's vote on the motion on the floor now, and then I'm gonna bring back a motion that I think I started
Earlier that.
communicating, and
Okay.
so let's start with that.
Okay, so we'll just focus on the motion that is about I just want to make sure I have everything. So the motion regarding the honorary commissioners to come in a capacity that encourages meaningful collaboration. So we'll start with that one.
Yes.
Okay. And I have that as a motion by Arenas, seconded by Yung. Right? Okay. So all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that motion passes unanimously.
Great. I had an additional motion, which I think got lost in conversation, which is good. We like conversations here. That's the whole point. So I had made a motion that we forward the creative funding opportunities on packet page 14. That was where we were, and I think DA Rosen, you're about to make a second for that motion.
Yes.
Yeah. And then can you put that slide, oh, there you go, the slide's on the screen right there, creative funding opportunities. What I appreciate about this is that these are all exploratory opportunities that doesn't immediately mean a price tag's attached to it, but looking at what resources we do still have in the county organization that can be moved around in terms of responding to the staffing needs for our major events of sports next year. So we'll go to, Perla?
Sorry, and we don't have to discuss this now, but I just would like to understand a little bit better the last bullet point around partnering with local national CBOs to supplement survivor services, and particularly with national CBOs, because I think in California we're in a very unique position in terms of rights that are afforded to victims of human trafficking, particularly around right to an advocate, privilege, communications, et cetera. So really we'll want to understand better what that entails, and if that's not something that we can supplement here and locally, or at least within the state, but would love to hear more about that.
Can I turn to Sharon and our presenters from the district attorney's office to help weigh in, to help respond to that?
I mean, in terms of national CBOs, we're not trying to engage with national CBOs because we're really trying to cultivate a very local response. So I don't know if, Brian, you had other thoughts about the national CBO partnership?
So I'll first just say that we at the District Attorney's Office really value our partnership with our community partners and victims advocacy groups. So certainly we're happy to talk to them offline to work out the best approach. This was sort of a brainstorming exercise of what we could possibly do. Certainly if our local community partners tell us there are concerns with partnering with national organizations, we're going to be mindful of that and defer to their expertise.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Sharon. So would it be safe, I guess, before we go to vote, because of the public-private partnership piece is still out there to be discussed and further finalized, I'm going to amend my motion so that it focuses on the discussion of exploring reassignment of vacant positions and also cross-departmental funding pools. Specifically with the caveat that the cross-departmental funding pools discussion really take place after the October budgetary targets have been identified for our county departments. Are you okay? I'm looking to the seconder of the motion.
That's fine with me, thank you.
Okay. Any other lights for discussion before we go to a vote? Okay, if I don't see your light, raise your hand. I don't see any lights. Camille, I turn to you.
All right, so we have the motion by Young, seconded by Rosen. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you, motion passes unanimously.
Wonderful. I'm going to look to my commissioners now. Is it safe to move on to the next agenda item, or is there still discussion or questions here to be had? No, I see no lights. I see no hands. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for staff's reports today, and thank you for our partners for their reports and presentations today. I'm going to turn to item 6, which is to receive an update from the Office of Speaker of the Assembly, Robert Rivas. Do we have a staff person? Hello. Please come to the lectern there. The mic is built into the lectern. You just start talking whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Madam Co-Chairs and members of the Commission, my name is Gilbert Ramos. I'm a senior field representative with Speaker Robert Rivas. Before I provide a brief state legislative update, I would just like to thank the Commission, and in particular Supervisor Young, for the invitation just to hear from other stakeholders on how the county is addressing human trafficking in the region, and an opportunity to share a legislative update, so thank you. As some of you are aware, the Assembly and Senate are wrapping up their legislative session this week. By Friday, the legislator must pass bills for the governor's consideration. The governor would have until October 12th to sign or veto any of these bills. As such, I'm here on the speaker's behalf, just providing a brief comments and just sharing any information with the speaker and his policy unit. This year, the speaker started with a clear focus on reducing cost of living and improving affordability for Californians. In advancement of that work, the speaker had created 4 select committees, one focused on childcare costs, CalFresh enrollment and nutrition, housing finance and affordability, and transportation costs and the impacts of the low carbon fuel standards. But then came the LA fires, the new federal administration and all their attempts to disrupt life for Californians and the resulting budget challenges. Unfortunately, the state, as we saw this year, does not have the capacity to backfill all of the draconian cuts. Even meeting current obligations is going to be difficult, and assuming new ones is going to be challenging and extremely limited. So in terms of this commission, we wanted to share, as we look at legislation, by far the highest profile bill related to sex work and youth as it relates to human trafficking was AB 379, which the governor has already signed into law. AB 379 tackles sex trafficking in several ways, including increasing penalties for the solicitation of a minor under certain circumstances. You know, it's an age thing. Making it a misdemeanor for persons to loiter with the intent to purchase commercial sex. Increasing the civil penalties for human trafficking related violations by businesses. And then it establishes the Survivor Support Fund, which is a grant program that would be administered by the California Victims Compensation Board. The fund would provide grants to community-based organizations that provide direct services and outreach to victims of sex trafficking and exploitation. Additionally, AB 379 establishes a human trafficking prevention vertical prosecution program, which is under the Office of Emergency Services. That grant program would provide financial and technical assistance for district attorneys' offices for the prosecution of human trafficking crimes. That's in terms of legislation. One of the big pieces is that the legislator worked on this year. In terms of funding, you know, we heard a lot of the cuts that are being made across the board, and you know, we understand that. We want to highlight. I was speaking to the policy unit, and they wanted to just highlight some of the opportunities that may be available through Cal OES. Last year, Cal OES administered nearly $230 million to 1,037 recipients for victim services. On Cal OES in particular, they in one of their announcements, they had highlighted one particular grant program, which was the Human Trafficking Victim Assistance Program. That program helps human trafficking victims and survivors recover from the trauma experience, and it assists them with integration into society through a comprehensive safety and supportive services using trauma-informed, culturally sensitive, victim-centered approach. That program in particular provided $28 million last year. I know we're having a lot of conversations related to the Bay Area Host Committee. I also want to highlight that in the budget deal struck by the legislative leaders, including Speaker Rivas and the governor, it included $10 million for the FIFA World Cup. And so, you know, as I conclude my brief presentation here, just want to thank you again for the opportunity inviting me to hear from folks, but then also just an opportunity to share a little bit of the work that the speaker is doing. Speaker's always happy to find ways to support our region, and happy to take any feedback or questions back to the speaker or the policy unit.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I'm going to turn to my members of the commission. If there are any questions, feedback, or special requests we'd like to send back to the speaker's office. Ruth?
Yes. How is that $10 million for FIFA going to be distributed?
I know what I had seen was that it was between LA and the Bay Area. I wouldn't be able to tell you right now. Happy to reach out to a policy unit and share it with the commission.
That'll be really appreciated. Thank you. Are there any other questions? You have our appreciation as a commission. Thank you for coming today, and we'll see you next time.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'll look for the invitation.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Consent calendar was approved. Next item and last item on the agenda is commissioner announcements. I'm going to turn to our members if there are any announcements, information to share going down the aisle. Supervisor Arenas?
Oh, I'd just like to invite everyone to the Latino Health Assessment Summit happening on the 22nd, 9 to 3. If you haven't received an invitation, please let me know, and I'm happy to send one.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other announcements? I also would like to invite everyone to the 8th Annual Women's Summit to be held on October 18th at San Jose State University. Registration is now open, and we have an exciting full day planned for everyone. Okay, thank you. No announcements? Okay, well, with that, I will adjourn this meeting to the next regular meeting scheduled for Monday, December 15th, 2025 at 2 p.m. The next meeting will be is scheduled for 2 hours. So thank you so much, everyone. Meeting adjourned.